Raymond, that's you.
No, this ain't Raymond.
Hi, I'm Raymond, and I am having Facebook issues again. God damn it. What do I have to do to fix this stupid thing? No. Now I have to remove it.
You have to uninstall and remove your entire Meta subscription.
Yes, it's Zuckerberg.
Just the problem this isn't live.
It's got a
Yes.
periscope right into the hallway of this show.
Okay, now we're live on Facebook after being live on the other two. You know what? I'm going to blame the four of us are tired from the Met Gala last night. I got to say, Paul, you had the best outfit.
Well, I was stunned that he was there knocking up Rihanna so quickly.
9 months, more like 9 minutes.
Yeah.
There's only so much spandex a body can actually wear.
I was particularly taken with Lisa from Blackpink, who basically had no pants or skirt on.
Yep,
I'm like,
just
wow.
wore underpants.
Yeah, she wore her leggings. I'm like, that's one way to do it.
But they weirdly had like oh god, the somebody famous on them in the front, and people are like all pissed off about that. I can't. Some iconic black woman, and now of course I can't remember her name.
What a
Oprah?
racist.
No, not like old school.
Angela Bassett.
Oprah
No,
doesn't
not that
qualify as
old. No,
Harriet
That old
Tubman.
school.
yeah, Harriet Tubman. That was it. Yeah,
it had her on her pants.
Yeah, but like literally right on the front, like you know, yeah. That's a little.
Was it Rosa Parks?
Wow.
No, Harriet Tubman. I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, wouldn't Rosa Parks be at the back?
Well, that was like some that there was
Come on.
something
I'm not
about.
touching that one. No.
Well, there was the girl who was wearing the underpants. There was something to do with her outfit that was a reference to Rosa Parks as well that I saw on the news as I was flipping through everything earlier today. Anyways, we're starting off with a tangent.
I'm just saying
This is a new one.
Waste of space, and everybody who goes there should.
Let's not talk about Thunderbolts at all. Let's just talk about the Met Gala.
So you're watching RPadTV. I'm your host Raymond, and today we're going to talk about the Thunderbolts, the latest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into it with our bite-sized reviews of Thunderbolts. Mac, why don't you take this one first and give a tiny bite-sized review of what you thought of Thunderbolts?
I would say yes, please. More David Harbour as Red Guardian.
Okay, I dig it. And Marcus?
I know I sent you one earlier, but I'm not going to bother with that one.
We're going off script.
Florence Pugh for the win.
Yeah.
Better team chemistry than anything Marvel's produced since Avengers Endgame.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's interesting. Paul, I actually have your screenshot here, so get your speaking voice ready.
Me. Don't get me wrong. I liked Thunderbolts, but it's mid-level MCU at best, which isn't bad. There's a lot of good movies in the mid-range, but it's no Endgame, or even the best since Endgame. That would be the Marvels or Spidey 4, although I should have added Deadpool and Wolverine as well. It's more like Captain America: Brave New World.
So
That's another really good comparison, because when I saw your post, Paul, I just also recently watched Brave New World, so the like dynamic between those two movies was like about the same to me. But adding in Deadpool and Wolverine is another good comp for just like which way I felt coming out of that movie.
So I wrote last week, it's probably not for everyone, but for me, Thunderbolts is one of the most surprising, interesting, and affecting MCU movies ever. Can't wait to see it again. And I actually did see it again last night. So
I've been thinking about that too. I'd go see it again now. Now that it's been a couple of days, I would go see it again.
Yeah, I think when I say it's not for everyone, it's very different from standard MCU. So I can see why some people won't like it as much as others. Going into this, I chatted with each of you briefly about it. I pretty much guessed right away that Paul would like this the least, and I would like this the most. And this is just based on, Paul and I have watched so many movies together over the last years. And I know what Paul's comic book preferences are. He does not like the minor characters as much as I do, and this movie is 5 minor characters
Yeah, it's
starring
minor characters.
in it. Yeah,
Smorgasbord.
and and I like those little obscure characters in comics, and I bought all of them. So this was more in my wheelhouse than Paul's. Let's start with you, Mac. I have a feeling that we're going to go on a David Harbour rant. So let's go around and talk about what we liked best about Thunderbolts.
I think for me, it was the pleasant surprise because you see a movie like Thunderbolts get lined up to be what it was kind of marketed to be, and you have a hard time believing that they're going to throw that many, call them mid-level, small, second-tier characters.
For
Either
sure.
way, you throw that many kind of main characters and story arcs into one movie, and that's a hard plot and narrative to kind of keep together
Yeah.
and to keep all of the characters interesting. And I think I was pleasantly surprised by, like, I felt like they did a great job with the cast just kind of getting together and giving that same kind of Avengers group type vibe. And I thought David Harbour's Red Guardian just came off as like the humorous heart of the whole group the whole way, and I thought that was just fantastic about it. Like,
Yeah, he was their glue guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect that. I didn't expect like him to be so heavily kind of woven into like the core like glue holding the group together. But I thought that was super cool.
Yeah. How about you, Marcus? What did you like best about Thunderbolts?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go on. I know we talk about Florence Pugh, but later, she was absolutely the shining star. I mean, this is the 3rd Marvel appearance she's had, and she was one of the best things in. Sorry, my Windows decided to back it up. She was one of the best things in Black Widow. She was her cameo in Hawkeye was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
and she owns this film. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think David Harbour and her chemistry is really, really great and very touching, and it builds upon what was established in Black Widow. But I mean, David Harbour may be the comedic heart of this moving forward, but I compare her Yelena to what Tony Stark was to the last.
Yeah, she did a good job being that central role.
She is one of these ones that will just carry on, and if they can, keep on using it, because we know that she's in Doomsday. Yeah, she has this. She's like no superpowers, and yet she is the most grounded one. Understands what's going on, and she's so she starts off the movie so broken, and the way she just improves, and that dry wit and the the delivery is just perfect. So
I watched quick behind the scenes, making a Thunderbolts thing right before I went to go see the movie. It was on like Disney Plus or whatever, and she actually did that jump off of that world's second tallest building, just on like secure lines that were done by the crew. And like even so, like that's an absolute no. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. So like kudos to her for just like
she's a fearless actor. I mean, all the roles she takes outside of Yelena, and you look at her career, and she's always done interesting and bold things. I mean, her Oppenheimer part was really interesting. Midsummer is the one that's viewed as the breakout. I mean, she was the best thing about Don't Worry, Darling, which was an atrocious backaway. But I mean, that's because she had to act opposite Harry Styles, who we have discussed before. So yeah, I think God bless her.
She's tremendously talented. I mean, what I liked about it was how different it was. Aside from the cast being the B tier, unlikely team, which we've seen before with Guardians and Suicide Squad, but I really liked how these were broken people. They're going through depression, loneliness. In Sentry's case, mental illness. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Sentry, he's basically, what if Superman were mentally ill? And
so he's Homelander.
I don't know. Homelander's
ill, not homicidal.
Yeah, right. He's a sociopath, and I wouldn't say that Homelander has dissociative identity disorder like Sentry does.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I was just
agree with
saying in terms
Marcus.
of like strength and power set and pretty much all that.
Yeah,
He's Homelander, he's Superman, but with
although he
like,
might have gotten nerfed, because in the movie they said he has the power of 1,000 exploding suns. In the comics, it's 1,000,000. So I don't, they could play with his powers. I mean,
we're in a recession, and all the sun
we can't afford the extra powers, guys.
Yeah, there was no.
Have you seen the budget?
The tariffs on the extra sun. Sorry,
but yeah, he is that high. Like in the comics, he has beaten and lost to Thor. He has beaten and lost to Hulk. So he's operating on that level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked
one of the books.
Pardon?
Thor kills him in one of the books, doesn't he? The sun.
Or is it the
Yeah,
other way? I thought I heard he kills Thor at one point too.
he did kill Thor. He did kill Ares. His signature move is just ripping people in half, which is hilarious in the Lego version of Sentry when he does it, and then all the blocks fly everywhere. I always thought that was really funny. But yeah, I liked how, most superhero movies, it's about stabbing or using super strength and lasers. But this was all about being there for each other, helping each other face their darkness and their loneliness. And some people find it cheesy, like the big group hug thing at the end. But for me, it worked for these characters and this movie. Paul, what did you like best?
Well, I agree with everything that you guys have said so far. I mean, one of the things that I really liked was the mental health aspect of the movie, which you already sort of went into, and I also really liked Florence as Yelena. The only thing that I would add is I also really liked Valentina and Mel and their interactions. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was super good in that role. The phrase I keep getting in my head with her is "delicious bitch." And I also really liked Val in that role. It wasn't. I mean, Mel, like her assistant, like wasn't a huge role, but it was pivotal, and I really liked that actress, and thought that she held her own against Val, which is not easy to do, especially when you're not as you're in a scene with like a comedic genius who was in Veep and Seinfeld, and you have to like stand up to her. That's not easy for someone to do, and she pulled it off really well. So that's the one thing I would add to what you guys have already said.
Interesting thing that's been brought up since the movie aired. Mel, they're thinking is going to become Songbird.
Yes,
because
Mel
she has a songbird on her thing on her neck, and I saw that thing this morning, and
her name is Melissa Gold. Melissa Gold is Songbird's name, who was previously a villain / superpowered pro wrestler named Screaming Mimi,
which is just beautiful. What a name! I mean, it's right there with Robin Myrtle from Harry Potter.
What's interesting is the actress who plays her wasn't the original person cast.
Right, it was Ado from the Bear.
Yeah. Who because the movie got delayed, she wound up not being able to do it. So if this does turn into like a big character for this person, that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought she was great too, and I very much agree with what you said, Paul. I mean, going up, sharing a screen with Julia Louis-Dreyfus for anyone is hard, but when you're butting heads with her and having conflicts with her as a character, how do you not get overshadowed? And she did well. But Paul, let's stick with you, partially because I believe you liked this movie the least out of the four of us. But what was your biggest problem with Thunderbolts?
Well, first I thought Taskmaster's death was pointless.
Yes,
and came way too early. And it's funny because as I was watching the movie, what I thought was she should have lasted all the way to the fight where there's a scene in the fight where they have with the Sentry, where the Sentry takes Red Guardian, flings him out the window, and holds him, and then brings him back. And I thought if instead they had done that with Taskmaster, but just let her go, like just flung her out the window, it would have been way more effective. And then apparently it came out that the screenwriter had not killed her in the beginning, but had left her in, and there was like a running gag with her and all this other stuff. So I think that would have made things better. We're going to go into it a little bit later about the guy who plays Sentry. I had issues with him.
Oh, interesting.
But the other
to
thing,
clear up your point about Taskmaster, the original writer had her in the movie all the way till the end, and there were
right?
two.
He did not kill her off at all.
Right.
But what I'm saying is I
but I'm
like
saying-
what he said about the character, but I still would have killed her off when.
Right, but clearing it up for the people that watched it, this movie was rewritten twice, and in those rewrites, they decided that they had to kill one of them in Utah in the vault.
Yeah,
I don't know if I agree with that decision, but
I don't know if I agree. I mean,
And was
It would have had
Taskmaster,
more
was that
emotional
Olga Kurylenko?
that was, yes.
yeah,
What a
Seems like
waste
they
of a
paid-
hottie.
It's like they paid a decent amount for her name to be like taken out in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but
I know. I was thinking that like if you're like a big Taskmaster fan, which okay, like you'd be
I
so
like-
pissed at Marvel.
oh wait,
Like,
wait,
because they really just didn't do much with that character at all. I mean, she was in Black Widow for a little bit, and then she's in this for 2 seconds and gets killed. Like,
But see, the point is for that, for comic purists, they actually like that they got rid of her because they want someone more closer to the comics version of Taskmaster,
No.
which is
Yeah.
he's more in the vein of he's kind of a dickish. Like, what if Deadpool was more of a dick kind of sense?
Yes, please.
Or what if Bullseye was nicer? That's kind of like his vibe.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys brought that up. That like is what you didn't like about it. Because I think when I started to think about what I didn't like about Thunderbolts, and Ray, I mentioned this to you when we were texting the other day. Like,
yeah,
I just thought it was funny. Like, A, how quickly Taskmaster was out of the thing, but then B, unbeknownst to me, then Bob just shows up out of nowhere in the middle of the fight, and everybody's like, "Wait, who the fuck are you?" And I just thought that, like, without having the context, I thought that was like, they just like off one character and just drop in another just for like.
Well, he was there in storage. If you look at it,
but like,
it's really
was
quick.
that ever like clearly shown? Like, they didn't show like a case with a body in it until
They
after
did.
They did.
Well, they showed the case. They didn't show it with the body in it.
Activated, wasn't it? And then they showed the case after the fact when Bob had been like,
I just didn't get the connection right away that he came out of a case that was in there. I was like, wait, did this guy just like fucking appear out of thin air? Or was it like a different power that we didn't know about?
It's pretty quick.
And then they showed the case that he was in afterwards. Like, oh, okay. So he was in there the whole time and got unleashed.
Yes. Or unshaken.
I thought it was funny though, because all of a sudden, like, it was Wyatt Russell's character that was just like, who the fuck are you? So
Wyatt Russell, one of two notable Nepo babies that we will talk about.
I thought he did great, by the way, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him. I've liked him as an actor for a long time. He was fun in 22 Jump Street.
What was the zombie movie I told you? What was the zombie movie he was in? I told you to go check out. Give me 2 seconds. It's fantastic, by the way.
And he's great playing his dad in the Godzilla movie.
Overlord.
Overlord.
If you haven't seen Overlord, it's worth a watch. It's very Wolfenstein.
Oh, that's interesting. So Marcus, what was your biggest issue with Thunderbolts?
I thought it could have upped the ante a little. I mean, obviously, you know what I'm going to say because we discussed it. I'm basing this on how well Daredevil went, where the series was. It was for grown-ups. There was more language, there was more violence, there was a bit more blood. And, you did make the point that, Marvel doesn't really want to do that with all its characters. But I think it's no coincidence that the time they leave characters off the chain, they end up with one of the biggest Marvel titles of all time in Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, I know they are different style of characters, but I thought it would have been quite interesting just to see just a little more, adult or grown up content. I mean, especially in the first half of the movie when they're trying to bond and get together, the friction and the fact that nobody tells anybody else to fuck off. It's just, it's just silly. I mean, they're trying to beat the crap out of each other. They shoot each other, and then, there's no spicy language, and then they climb up that bloody pipe and they get out, and there's all these soldiers that they need to kill, and there's just not 1 ounce of blood, and it just. I just think Marvel could mature a little. I'm not saying, maybe not going the Deadpool and Wolverine route with decapitations and that level of perhaps violence,
but some blood.
It could grow it up. It could mature it up a little, because Thunderbolts is not for kids. It's not for 5-year-olds. It's not for 10-year-olds who are going to be wearing Thanos masks or Halloween.
Right.
It is. It's the other thing I thought of after our conversation is they really could have amped the horror up.
Oh yeah.
Bob and the Void.
Yeah.
I mean, they really could have amped those sections up, especially towards the end, where it's almost like Yelena's in a haunted house of the mind.
Very Doctor Doomish.
The interconnected shame rooms.
Yeah, I just think that was a missed opportunity. So how many? I'm guessing one of you guys will know this, but I believe you can say fuck once and still remain PG-13. Is that right? I think you're allowed
Yeah, that's the one-time rule.
Yeah.
You can give a fuck once.
You get one fuck.
They put one in Guardians 3, didn't they?
Yeah, it was him talking about. Then you open the fucking door.
Yeah.
He's trying to get in the car.
I like that use of it too.
Yeah, in one of the X-Men movies, there was like a cameo from Wolverine, and his only line was "fuck off."
Fuck off.
And apparently, people have called that the best.
That was the
Days of Future Past.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
It was X-Men First Class.
Yeah, it was the stinger scene at the end of the movie.
So my problem was with the second act of the movie. I think they spent way too long in Utah and could have used another major location to set it up. I actually timed it out when I was watching the movie last night, but between the vault and all the dirt in Utah surrounding the vault, they spent an hour there. And I'm like, yeah, dirt. I get it. But yeah, I think another location would have made things more interesting visually.
I agree with that. I noticed that as well.
But yeah, let's move on to something positive. I mean, Marcus, you brought up Florence Pugh's performance, and yeah, she was amazing. What stood out for you?
Well, I think I said it all. I mean, she's an incredibly brave and versatile actress. She's practically fearless, as by the fact that she jumped off the side of the second. It's like she's been taking Tom Cruise lessons.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could tell, and this is no disrespect to the other actors who are all fine actors in their own way, but she is streets ahead of everyone. I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is obviously comic royalty and a pretty good actress, but I think as Yelena, Florence Pugh is she outshines everybody. I mean, she's the centerpiece of the movie.
She is for sure.
I think she just nails it. And then I can play no higher. I mean, if this wasn't a Marvel movie, if this wasn't a superhero movie, and it was something that dealt with depression and psychosis and various, mental illnesses, etc., she'd be talked about for awards because of the way she handles this, because of her own demons that she communicates. But she's in a fucking Marvel movie, and it's a PG-13 Marvel movie, so she's just going to get meh.
Yep.
I 100% agree with you. To me, I think this is some of the best acting in any MCU movie. I really need to give it more thought. It might be the best performance in an MCU movie. And it's not just the way. I mean, she has her big scene with David Harbour when, she has her breakthrough with her depression. But there were two scenes that were nonverbal acting scenes that I thought were really impressive. When Ren Guardian picks them up in the limo and he's like, I can see the light in you. And she turns away partially because she feels shy about it, but partially like she's about to shed a tear. Like the way she conveyed that in like 2 seconds, I just thought that was fantastic. The second scene was when they're tied up in the airport hangar and Bucky reveals that Walker's wife and kid left him. And he lied about that before, but she just gives him a look where she's like, that's what happened, but also feeling empathy and feeling sorry for him. And he just gives her a nod like, yeah, that's the truth. But just the nonverbal acting was just really impressive. And it's not to say that there aren't good actors in Marvel movies. There's actually a shocking amount of Oscar-nominated actors between
An
in
Oscar-winning
Marvel
actors.
and Oscar-winning actors. Yeah, I mean, Sebastian Stan wasn't he nominated for 2 in the last Oscars?
He was nominated for 1 in the last Oscars, but 2, I think, 2 Golden Globes for 2 different.
Right, for the Trump movie.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has had 1.
Ruffalo, Angela
Anthony
Bassett.
Hopkins has 2.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit, but yeah, and given that, I think all those people performed appropriately for a superhero movie, whereas Florence's performance, I think, almost transcended. And yeah, I've been a massive fan of her since she played WWE wrestler Paige in Fighting with My Family. Highly recommended.
I didn't realize that was her until you just said that. That's funny.
Yeah.
I
actually saw that on a plane. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it because I really don't like the WWE.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it had Nick Frost and it was directed by Stephen Merchant. So it's,
It has a
good combo.
Yeah. Paul, what did you think of Florence Pugh's performance here?
Well, again, you guys kind of summed it up. The one thing I would point out, and this is not to diminish what her performance, but they gave her big scenes, emotional scenes to play, and I think they did that because they knew she could handle it and would be really good. And I agree with you that was some of the best acting in a Marvel movie. Like, you really felt her pain as you were watching, especially But I would also point out that she does really well in the action scenes. You know, and that's the thing, you know, not everybody can pull that off, you know, can do action and acting. And I think she pulled both off in this, the same way she did in especially the Hawkeye show, but also in Black Widow. She showed that she could do both. And but again, that's not unusual for the Marvel movies. There's been a bunch of performances in these movies that have been really, really good. So yeah,
it's funny looking at Black Widow in retrospect, which I think the four of us will agree is not a great movie, but Scarlett Johansson was very generous to Florence Pugh in giving her scenes and letting her elevate her career, and giving her the Black Widow mantle for future Marvel movies. And that's a pretty amazing thing for a star as big as Scarlett to be that generous with a co-star.
But she was in Florence Pugh's position all those years ago when she was doing Ghost World.
Yes.
She did Lost in Translation, and then she kind of like, blossomed out there. I mean, don't forget, she was the sort of like the ugly cookie friend in Ghost World. And, and look how she's progressed. And I think it's interesting that, considering how badly served Natasha Romanoff was as a character by Marvel, Black Widow movie, not great. One, the timing was awful. It shouldn't have come out during the pandemic. It should have come out before Endgame. Before Infinity War. We all know this, and it was a real just bullshit decision. And some of her stuff has been great. I mean, but it's been more about Scarlett Johansson carrying and creating a character, as opposed to somebody writing some good stuff. I mean, I think that there's some stuff that you look at her in some sections of Civil War, for example. She seems to be coasting through initially, and then when they go on the Winter Soldier, then they go on the run. She goes on the run with Cap, and you start to see a little bit more. The guard starts to slip, and then you see her more in. You also see her more in Ultron, and the fact that they killed her off in Endgame is just. I mean, how many female characters do you need to keep on killing off in Marvel movies when you don't have that many in the fucking first place? I mean, Taskmaster, another character that they killed off too quickly, and not only that, they incinerated the body. Taskmaster gone. Taskmaster not coming back. There's no Doom-esque, there's none of that. She gone crispy.
I don't know. Reed Richards is really smart.
I think that I mean, Scarlett Johansson she's obviously fought, and she's done a lot of stuff. I mean, she's done some dodgy stuff Ghost in the Shell.
Sure. Yeah.
But she has also.
I
done a
liked
lot of
Ghost
stuff
in
to
the
fight for
Shell.
people.
She also has a.
So,
I mean, dodgy stuff.
too.
She married Colin Yost.
Well, I mean,
just kidding.
Yeah. Well, she's got to suffer for some stuff.
You know, she's a producer on this movie, by the way.
Yes.
Like,
Now we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
knew
think
she had a deal in place for, this, and it would be nice to see a Yelena standalone movie. Don't relegate her to just teams and the occasional pop up in somebody else's show.
And her sister's follower,
Right. Well, I mean, I to my surprise, this was much more of a starring vehicle for Yelena than I thought it would be. I thought it would be more of an ensemble, but to me, this was really.
It seems like if they've set her up for anything in the future, though, that Sentry is going to be there because they seem to have a pretty close attachment. Yeah. So if she's going to show up in a future movie, and if it's going to be more about her, I feel like he's going to be in it too.
Absolutely.
It's very similar to the Scarlet's Black Widow and the Hulk.
And Hulk.
And how they, the sun's going
down.
Yeah.
Baby guy.
Yeah. I think it may tap back into the fact that they are spies and they are, trained in, in emotional warfare or whatever. They know how to
I never bought that romance between them. Whereas this feels more of like a platonic supportive thing with Yelena and Bob.
Oh yeah, for sure. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like.
But I actually thought the romance between Natasha and
Hulk
was and Bruce was actually, I thought it was really good. It was nice and understated.
It was believable too.
She was the one who sort of initiated. He was clueless, and he kept his distance, and it was literally boom. One movie and done, because he goes off to Sakaar and she goes off to, I mean, when you see the reaction of Bruce at
one of my favorite Jeff Goldblum roles.
Sorry?
So you said Sakaar. I was like, it's one of my favorite Jeff Goldblum roles.
Oh, yeah. Jeff Goldblum's awesome. I'd love to see him in Doomsday.
So, Matt, we covered a lot of Florence Pugh's performance. Did you have anything to add?
No, I'm honestly I'd just be echoing everything that you guys said. I thought she did great. I thought she was the glue that, besides Red Guardian, I thought she was the glue that kind of moved the movie forward. It was her movie for sure. So
and for some reason, I don't know why, I thought it would have more Bucky, just because
I absolutely thought it was going to have more Bucky, and it felt weird. He felt forced in. All of a sudden, he's just on a motorcycle behind the bad guys that are heading out to get, it just was very let's just get him in there.
Still have no idea why he ran for office. That was
I don't know what the point of that is. That seems really weird to me.
Over two movies, I haven't got a good explanation.
I mean, I think they had to have Bucky because he was the biggest known of the characters.
But what's funny though?
No, I'm not saying that. I wanted Bucky in the movie more. I would have put Bucky in that beginning part when they were in the room with Bob, when they first meet Bob. But the idea of him I don't know why they've made him a representative.
They made him softer than you remember him being too. He seemed to get beat up a little bit more this movie than you would expect him to get beat up.
He's 120 years old now. Come on, man.
I think it's interesting they have 3 super soldiers in this movie.
Yeah.
If you think about it, all various versions of the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us looked at. I mean, I know I did. That I thought that Bucky would be the de facto leader.
Yeah, I thought it would be a Bucky movie that had supporting characters, not a
and Yelena steps forward, and then we get into that post-credit scene, and that's what
they marketed it. They marketed it exactly like you just said. Though they marketed it heavy focus on Bucky, Sebastian Stan, and then bits of the other characters that you know.
Right, and I get why they did that, because he's had the most appearances.
Yeah, he's the most screen time.
He's the most tenured, but I love that it was a Yelena movie. That actually worked out well for me. So, Mac, why don't you kick this one off? Let's shift gears and talk a bit about Sentry, played by our second Nepo baby, Lewis Pullman, son of Lone Star from Spaceballs.
So, and I've said this in the past when we talk about, I'm a Marvel fan. I love comics and the games and all the stuff that I got to work on way back. But I only became a Marvel fan because I worked on the game. I wasn't like, I'm not like a lifelong fan. So I didn't actually know a whole lot about Sentry. I knew the name. I'd seen him in the past, but I didn't know any real details. So I had to go kind of look him up and figure out what he was all about. And I thought that Lewis Pullman did a decent job. I feel like, especially as as like Sentry is the embodiment of what he thinks like a pure superhero would be. Like that's how he looks as Sentry. That's how he acts as Sentry. But like the Void fell flat to me. Like that character, I don't know why. It just didn't seem as menacing and as powerful as you kind of.
Maybe to Marcus's point, it should have been more built up the horror more of the Void.
Yeah, again, there was just something that was missing in like just the significance of the Void, and that like it was cool. He turned everybody into shadow dust, But
that's cool. That was creepy.
It was, and then at the end you're like, what the funniest part is when they save that little girl, and then all of a sudden she just disappears, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
I thought that was like well done. That gave me a good laugh in the movie. But then like they just didn't. It felt like they missed a beat to really kind of hit home just how effed up and dangerous he is as the Void.
So when you say
that on Lewis Pullman as like not being able to deliver on the character, it just he just
how
felt
it was written.
I think it was written flat, and he delivered it flat.
Paul, you also mentioned that you had some issues with Lewis Pullman's performance. I only know him from Top Gun and this, so I'm very unfamiliar with him. Yeah, I just know he plays Bob in 2 movies. So what are your issues with Lewis Pullman?
I just remember sitting there in the theater thinking that there was something off about it. And it wasn't working for me at all, like his performance. And I actually disagree. Like I thought when he was the Void, he was a lot more interesting. And when he was, turning everybody into whatever the hell he was turning them into, shadows, like I thought that was kind of cool. I do think that it would have been more effective if they had shown other people in the Void. Like, what did that little kid see? What did like some of the other people that you kind of met, like who went into the Void? What did they see in the Void? Not just Yelena and the other Thunderbolts.
Well, even Bucky with his past, like his shame rooms must have been horrific.
Yeah. Like I think you could have shown a couple more of those to really drive the point home that this is not a cakewalk. But yeah, especially at the beginning, it just didn't work for me for some reason. And I can't really put my finger on why. It just seemed like his character was off.
That's funny. I agree more with Mac than you. I liked him as like goofy, innocent Bob.
He did a good job communicating the emotion of like the mental strife that he was going through.
Yeah,
like I think he did a good job on that front.
I also agree with you that I think the Void could have been more impactful, and that's something I'll talk about a little bit later. But he also has one of the most unexpected lines from a Marvel movie. I was on meth. I never expected to hear that. Marcus, what did you think of Lone Star Jr.?
Lone Star. Sorry, couldn't resist.
I think he did a good job with what is essentially an incredibly difficult role to play somebody with these issues that, whether it's addiction, whether it's abusive parents that have left these traumas. That's incredibly hard. Not many actors can pull that off in the best way without going totally over the top and, Rain Manning it. Or was it Simple Jack?
Going full R.
Yeah. So he resisted that. I mean, he did resist that. And I thought he did communicate, a lot of the issues he has. I agree with Mac and Raymond on this. The Void should have felt. Not once did the Void make the hairs on the back of my neck go.
Right.
It really. I mean, because the fact that they had him and that's all you could see is these eyes.
Yeah, and
you know,
the
he's
little like
just
pinholes. Yeah.
yeah, but it should have been almost like the whites of his eye. You know, he should have had. You know, you should have seen the whites of his eyes and then his pupils just to have that whole really so like Hammer Dracula 1970s kind of look, where it's like the eyes are just the pupils are bloody and red. So yeah, I thought he did okay. I was not familiar with him. I admit I watched Top Gun Maverick once and haven't seen it
I watched
since.
that
And I
movie
really
so
can't
often.
remember much about it. So I think yeah, they missed a trick with the Void. They really did. And I think and going back to what you said earlier, too much time was spent in Utah, where they could have actually shown a little more of the Void going nuts. No pun intended. But we could have seen more of that. We could have seen
and like a me, myself, and Irene sort of way, where you get the music going.
When he's like,
no, but I'm just my point is that we could have seen perhaps these that aspect of the power slowly developing. Because all of a sudden he's dropped into he's 1 minute he's Bob, and the next thing you know he's wearing the leather yellow suit with a big S on his belt, and he's gotten bottle blonde,
right?
And he can he's like, oh, I can take all these punches, I can flick you away. Like there's no training, there's no exploring, there's no sort of like easing yourself in the shallow end first. They jump straight in the deep end. I think they missed a lot of tension building.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, they could have. It's funny, I'm on a Jim Carrey kick now. It feels like the Void / Bob is the same thing as like the Cable Guy. Because Jim Carrey's super dark as the Cable Guy. That shit was creepy, right? And like even if it was a comedy movie, like I like that. That's what you hit the nail on the head earlier, Mark. It's just like I didn't get any level of like even fake fear out of the Void, aside of knowing that like the guy can just turn me to shadow dust and whatever he wants. But like it just didn't hit hard enough for me as
yeah.
We
That's
needed
a great
into the Void to be better. Bob's likable to start off with. He's a little bit kooky. He's like, where the fuck am I used to do meth, blah 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 blah. And there was if there was that sense that we got him, we liked him more, and then we slowly watch him. Whether it's Valentina messing with him, bringing stuff up, Valentina. The fact that Valentina gets away, that's another issue I have. I have with
the whole news conference.
Yeah,
just step through this rubble.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see it when they're saving the people and on Park Avenue. They have a quick shot of her where you see the
having an idea.
Yeah, I just love that scene.
Well, she'd already told Mel to go and get the press.
Right, but that was supposed to be for Century.
Right.
Yeah. So Marcus and Mac, you mentioned that you weren't familiar with the character from the comics. Really interesting. He was created in the 90s by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee as kind of the idea was to have like a bipolar Superman. And the PR campaign for it was funny because they actually did branded marketing with Wizard, where they said Stan Lee was being like interviewed. He's like, yeah, I created this character and totally forgot that I created him. And then I just found him and all these, and it was all bullshit. It was clever marketing, but he was created by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee. The version of the Void in the comics, it's almost looks more like Violator from Spawn, which would have maybe been jarring in the movie. I like that they just had like a shadow with the pinhole eyes. I thought it was really creepy visually, but as Marcus and you said, there was no impact there. I think maybe that's could be faulted for the writing and the performance. But Mac, since you researched him, how did the character that you saw change from what you learned about him in your research?
I did the research after the movie.
Yes.
So.
But did it match up after that, or
it matched up enough? Like it gave me a little bit better of an understanding of like the full kind of it's like there's always more detail in the written stuff. So like it just gave me more context for what was like loosely explained in the movie, and I thought it made sense and I thought it held up. But then going to talk about like you see just like what they're how powerful they're trying to make this character, both good and bad. And the good, you saw it, you felt it, right? And as a Sentry, the bad, It just like it wasn't there. So, and what's funny is your next point here too is about like, you know, oh, who else could have done that role and maybe done a better job performance wise? And you have Stephen Yeun, who was apparently originally
Young,
cast for
yes.
this.
Yes.
I've been thinking about that, and I feel like if I wasn't watching the movie, if I was just listening to the movie, Stephen Yeun like does a great job as Invincible, delivering like a super broad range of emotion.
Young.
Right. So I could see him pulling off maybe a little bit of a deeper kind of character for the Void, right? A little bit more emotion, a little bit more intensity. But I don't know if I saw him as Sentry, like with that Matt. In my head, I would just be seeing Invincible still.
Interesting. Paul, I mean, Mac's a massive fan of Invincible, as I think you and I are probably the biggest fanboys of that show. But Paul, you're more of a comic book nerd than Mac. Did this version of Sentry meet your expectations from what you knew of him in the comics?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think Marvel's been good at is they always get to the heart of the character, even when they do change things. Like, and there's nobody, I can't really think of any character in the Marvel movies, although as soon as I say this, you'll come up with 3. But I can't really think of anyone that's like really terrible, like where it's really off. Like, I mean, they've really obviously never done anything like the Catwoman movie where like it had nothing to do with it. No, I mean the MCU. But even I don't even have a problem. Like I thought he was happy.
We spoke about one last month. Like the adaptation of Muse, I thought was wretched. Whereas I love the way they adapted Sentry to the MCU. It makes more sense.
Does Morbius count?
Right.
No, that's
but again, Sony. Morbius is not MCU. So
yeah,
you know,
it's true.
Like you know, they're really So, but he's also not a character. Again, this goes back to something you said at the beginning. He's not a character I really care that much about. To me, he's like a secondary character. You know, Sentry. Yeah, like so them changing little things about him. It's like okay,
I thought the changes worked. I love the character. Just the idea of mentally unstable Superman is fascinating to me. It gets around all those, Superman issues that are like, wait, well, why didn't Superman just solo this? You can do that with Sentry because, the Void could come out at any minute. So I like what they did there.
But I feel like I've read a lot of comic books where they've done like, oh, Superman if he was unhinged, or Superman if he was an asshole. Like I
for sure they had Majestic in Image Comics.
Yeah.
That stands out. But also having Sentry, who's mentally ill Superman, I want to see him team up with Moon Knight, who is essentially mentally ill Batman.
See, that's the thing. Like Moon Knight to me is a far more interesting take on a character with mental health issues. Like, even though I know it's very different mental health issues, but still, like, I think Moon Knight is a much more interesting character. But yeah, having Sentry and Moon Knight do a movie, like, I don't know what you have them do, but like
the mentally ill Avengers.
I don't know. Like, do you do Moon Knight X Sentry Dawn of Justice? I don't know.
I feel like you get Pineapple Express 2 or something weird.
Wow.
They're just sitting around eating gummies.
With the Egyptian hippo god like hanging out with them.
A very strange adventure. Or what's
yeah. Well, let's move on to the next point because
you can ask me about what I thought.
Well, no, because
I think that I wasn't aware of the character, and I actually was aware of the character. One, I'd read a couple of stories, but the way I was aware of it, and I'll just tell you quickly.
Okay, because I was putting you off because we're going long.
Marvel Puzzle Quest. Sentry's a character in that, and that's how I learned about his powers and that sort of stuff. So, but I'll just go back to my corner now. I'm sorry, we're running long. Okay, maybe if you hadn't got us into Facebook in the first place.
So, Stephen Yeun was originally going to play Sentry. He worked with the director Jake Schreier on Beef. And what Mac was saying, I thought Stephen Yeun would have made a much better Void. I kept thinking of how he would have played, when Bob and Void are fighting. I just pictured Stephen Yeun killing in that scene. I mean, Marcus, do you have a opinion on how he would have done?
I understand this somewhat fetishization you have of this actor, because it's kind of, you seem to be more concerned with who didn't play Sentry as opposed to who did. Stephen Yeun. I want to make sure I get that right. Stephen Yeun is not Sentry. He was initially cast, but he went the way of Dougray Scott. We don't talk about Dougray Scott as Wolverine. We talk about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Stephen Yeun was not Sentry. He's never going to be Sentry. It was unfortunate. He's a fantastically talented actor. Don't get me wrong. He was brilliant in Beef.
Wait. No, that's incorrect. He absolutely was Sentry, and he had to drop out because
Dougray Scott was also Wolverine, and he had to drop out because Mission Impossible 2 ran low.
Right, but this was...
So I'm just saying, but we don't have that conversation about Dougray Scott other than he's a footnote. And it's like, I bet he really regrets that. So I just think this question just seems superfluous, because, I mean, it's like the Adobe, as Mel. I mean, I just want to talk about who was there in front of us. And I really I like this, I like the actor. He's brilliant in Invincible. Absolutely superb. And he's so great in Beef. And he is a madly talented actor. And I think it is sad that we don't get to see his character, his take on the character. But I would love to see him in the MCU as a different character.
His big...
He's open to that, and he wants to do that.
He'd be great. He'd be great as a lot of things. And that's the thing. I want to put him as Sentry out of my mind, because we do not get what we always want.
Sure, but I mean, we're talking about
even in the Walking Dead
company that does What If. So that's basically what I was asking. Like,
and then we have What If season 4. What if he was Sentry, and we'll have his voice, and they'll be like, Invincible Sentry.
Maybe, or it could be like when they showed what's his face as Superman.
Well, we're gonna be all weirded out in a few months anyways when Robert Downey Jr. comes out as Dr. Doom.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
We have to digest that and jump that shark as well.
Ray told me, he texted me to say Robert Downey Jr. is back in the MCU, and I was like, "Fuck off."
Yeah, everybody was like, "All right, fuck that." Like, and then no, wait, seriously?
Yeah, I thought it was like an April Fool's joke or something.
There was at least 2 different news sites that everybody checked after wherever they got the original news. They checked 2 more sources just to make sure that was like not BS.
I mean, when you have the Kang problems, you gotta open and break in case of emergency.
No, he wants to come back to the MCU as well. He's come out and said that he'd love to return to the MCU as Kang.
Yeah, well, I'd like to date Scarlett Johansson, but that's not going to happen either.
Well, not with that attitude. I could take out Yost for you.
Colin Jost bought that ferry, and it's pissed her off. So, you can position yourself as the non-ferry guy.
Right. Not an owner of a ferry.
Yeah. Might be the way to go.
So, Ray, you have a thing here, too. Is like, do we like the reveal of, like we were talking about earlier, like it's the new Avengers? What is that actually like? So are in the timeline at this point, like where are all the other Avengers? Like, so
there are no Avengers at this point.
Why?
But let's save that for later. There's a lot to unpack there that fits in more to the post-credit stuff. Paul, did you have any what if thoughts on Stephen Yeun?
Just that I think now he has the opportunity to play a more interesting character. Maybe Amadeus Cho or
probably too
old.
I don't
know. He's young looking. Yeah, so he could
be a great Danny Rand.
Oh, that's
I think because let's face it, Iron Fist was a disaster on the Netflix version, and I think that he could be a great Danny Rand.
That's the one show I have never actually watched. Is the
You're good. You're good.
Don't waste my time.
Don't waste your time. I mean, it's bad enough you have to watch him doing the Defenders. I mean, it's basically that show sucks, or that character sucks. It's like walking quicksand. throughout the entire season.
Except that Jessica Henwick was really cool, and so was
Jessica-
Misty Knight.
Jessica Hennick.
I mean, Hennick.
Yeah, but
Hennick?
Misty
Oh,
Knight
Henwick.
was, she was also more Luke Cage than.
Yes.
than,
The
Yeah.
W is silent, Paul.
Oh.
Let's talk about the characters that we didn't talk about. Anyone stand out for you in the supporting cast, Paul?
Well, I've already talked about Mel and Val. Those were sort of the big two. Yeah, I think those are the only two. For me, I mean, I did recognize the guy who was Val's like trigger man. Like I don't know who he is, but he's like a character actor that I've seen in like a lot of movies. He's one of those guys where you're like,
he was in True Blood. He was the sheriff in True Blood.
He was in The Wire.
He's like one of those. He's like one of those guys where you're like, oh, hey, it's that guy. Oh, wait, he's dead.
He was in The Wire, and Wendell Pierce, who plays the senator, was also in The Wire. So I thought,
that's another one. Wendell Pierce in this movie was pretty cool as like a senator. Like I liked him. He has a very authoritative.
Oh yeah,
since,
yeah, he's not the kind of guy I want to fuck around with.
He hasn't aged since Hackers, because he was the FBI agent in Hackers.
Oh wow, that's right.
Oh wow, that's a throwback.
I actually watched him over the weekend because a lady made me watch the Twilight movies with her, and he's in those, or he's in one of those.
He is?
Huh.
He is in Breaking Dawn Part 2.
He was in the stuff that was on Amazon Prime, the not John Wick movies.
Oh, Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan. He was in that. It was really good in the Jack Ryan series. And then, ironically, like years ago, some like coworkers at Activision were always like, "Oh, have you never seen The Wire?" So I finally got bored enough somewhere a couple months ago and just kind of powered through like the first 2 seasons of The Wire, and he was in that. He's also really good in that as well. But he's a strong actor.
Definitely. For supporting cast, and I consider Red Guardian part of the supporting cast, which I didn't expect, but for me, that was the perfect amount of David Harbour.
It was, and I didn't mention that earlier. I feel like if they sprinkled in more of him, then it would have been too
much. Yeah. For me, it's like cooking with ginger. There's like a fine line between.
And same thing. I also liked equally the amount of, I don't want to call it like anger or just like oppositional defiance disorder or whatever that like Wyatt Russell brought as John Walker. Right?
Oh.
He was like the perfect amount of not captain, right? But also like they didn't overdo it and force that so much that you're like, okay, we get it. But like it was just enough. Like I said, every character had like just the right amount of ingredients to make that kind of group dynamic work.
He was more empathetic in this movie than he was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he was just a dick, basically.
I'm going to throw a Ghost. Because Ghost. That's a character with mental.
She was great.
Serious, mental scarring.
Yeah,
and I thought she was incredibly underused, especially as she's one of these ones with the superpowers. Right. I thought once they got out of the incendiary room of death, and got out of Utah, she kind of vanished.
Right.
Her significance in the group kind of dissipated after that.
Yeah, but she was really good in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right.
Yeah.
That actually goes into my next question. That is the character I wanted to see more of. I like the character. I like the actor. She has that hot accent, and she's hot. But also,
I know you love a British accent, don't you, Ray?
I do.
In my research and reading about all the stuff with Sentry, I did come across that he's got some history with Deadpool. So I will throw my vote that this movie was missing a Deadpool cameo.
But for you, that's every movie.
Spaceballs is missing a Deadpool cameo. Okay.
But Marcus? Was there anyone you wanted to see more of? Ghost.
Yeah, like I said, I think the actress is really, really good. I think that character has got. We knew how damaged Wyatt Russell is. We know how damaged Elena is. We know David Harbour's character, Red Guardian's, like, just 6 cans short of a 12-pack. And then Bucky's just off in his own area.
But older.
We really didn't get to explore any more of her because I think maybe they got the exposition out the way with Ant-Man and Wasp. But if you hadn't seen that film, you wouldn't really know about it. And let's face it, she's a full-on freaking assassin. She's not a super soldier. She goes through walls. I mean, the one interesting bit was, if I can't see where I'm going, I'm going to rematerialize after a minute, and I'm going to be squished.
Part of a wall.
Like Nightcrawler teleporting, that issue. So there were scenes that were written for her and for Alexei for their shame rooms. Alexei's is him brought to the Russian gulag and the shame he felt there. For Ghosts, it sounds silly on paper. I have no idea how it would play out if it was filmed, but they were showing her as a kid and how none of the other girls wanted to play with her, which doesn't seem so traumatic to me as much as it is sad. I don't know. But
well, as a somebody who was a young girl that no other girls wanted to play with, like it's I still have those emotional scars, so that can be a terrible thing.
We're gonna need therapy after this show.
Okay, let's do this part quickly because we're running long. But guys, thanks for watching. If you want to help out, you can subscribe or like, or you can go to Amazon, pick up some RPadTV gimmicks. We got shirts, phone cases, bags, throw pillows, and more. Or you can get yourself a fine VPN subscription at Proton. There are links to both of these in the Facebook and YouTube video descriptions. Let's get back to our show and the fun stuff. Marcus Beer, which Thunderbolts character do you identify with the most?
None of them.
Wow. Okay.
No, I mean, look, there's no character in there that I think, they're all so damaged. We're all damaged in different ways. And I've actually spent the last 2 years in therapy anyway. So I've sort of like been analyzing myself, and I thoroughly recommend therapy. It's fantastic, along with antidepressants, especially if your house is burnt down. Antidepressants. But yeah, I mean, who would you want to be? Maybe Bucky, because super soldier, X amount of years old, congressman or whatever the hell he was, detachable, vibranium.
Amazing hair.
Great hair.
He's that hair. I mean, he should have after the premiere. You saw that he was all Slapheticus Rex. But I thought but I don't identify with any of these characters at all, because as we've discussed, they are secondary characters, and we always want to be the hero in our own story, the main character in our own story. But I just don't think. I don't know. Maybe Mel.
So I will go with Walker, because he's washed up. His family has left him, and
killed a man in cold blood.
He still has that I don't know, that sarcastic sense of humor. Like, one of my favorite lines was in the post-credit scene where he's like, "What are we gonna do? Ride Bob into space?" And I thought that was hilarious. And I'm like, I would say something like wise ass like that.
Yeah.
But also his struggles I identify with, not at that level. And no, I have not murdered anyone with a shield, just in case you were wondering. Paul, what about you? Who do you identify with on the Thunderbolts?
Mostly Red Guardian. I'm old, overweight, out of shape, past my prime, have a beard, would totally hug Florence Pugh if given the opportunity and it wasn't too creepy.
And you're Russian.
I am 1/4 Russian.
Yeah,
I did not know
way
that.
too short to be Red Guardian. Harbor's what, 6'4"?
He's a tall guy.
He's a big dude.
Tall. I mean, you'd be like mini-me next to him. You could be mini Red Guardian.
I could be Red Guardian Jr.
You'd be Red Guardianito.
Red janitor. Matt, close this one out. Anybody you identify?
I think Yelena, just because
I'd hang out with you more if you were more like
100%.
I could see you in a leather.
You know what?
jacket.
Like, and this goes back to what we've all been talking about. If you've ever gone through any level of mental depression or anything like that, like when she's just walking around talking about just going through the motions and just like still not being able to find happiness or joy in any of the work that she's doing, like, man, I didn't expect that to be like, no shit. Like, we've all been there.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to have that moment listening to her talk about life as a kind of anti-hero at that point. I thought that was interesting, and it was a unique kind of mental experience to have while you're watching what's supposed to be like a fun kind of Marvel action movie. It was unexpected, and I was happy that it happened.
I mean, international assassins. They're just like us.
They
So
shop
relatable.
too. They eat bananas.
So, Mac, you touched on this before, but the reveal of the Thunderbolts that surprised the shit out of me, did it surprise you guys, Mac?
I just don't know. I don't understand. Like, I get it. Like, there was the asterisk the whole time, but like, why? What is the significance and the importance of them being the new Avengers? Where are the other Avengers? They referenced it in the movie a few times. Like, the Avengers are gone. Like, where the fuck are they? Like, I just don't know.
There are no Avengers because of, well, one, the events of Endgame, but also the Sokovia Accords, which were later repealed. We find out. And then at the end of Brave New World, Sam said he's assembling a new team. So, and of course, in the post-credit scene, which we'll touch on later,
talking about the lawsuit between the
yeah, there are no Avengers at this point for reasons.
But what are those reasons? Something that like is
for practical reasons. Nobody is under contract to be the Avengers.
Sure.
For narrative reasons, it's because of Endgame, the Accords, and pick your poison.
I mean, we'll see them back for Doomsday because we know.
That's what I'm saying. They're all going to be back shortly, and are they all going to be working? The original Avengers going to be working with the new Avengers? Going to be working with the Fantastic Four? Is what it seems like.
That
is not quite what I'm expecting, but
let's see. Go through it. Steve Rogers got old.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch got loco, and then possibly died, but I don't think she did. Vision got dead, but there's a white version of Vision flying around that we haven't seen. Thor, he's off saving the galaxy with Love and Thunder Jr. I mean, who am I missing? I mean,
Black Widow's dead.
Black Widow's dead.
dead.
Iron Man's dead.
Iron Man's dead. Clint, Spider-Man.
Clint, they wanted to cut his salary in half, so he decided not to go back.
I mean, for Hawkeye season 2, that's taking the piss because I mean, he didn't even
ask
for more money.
Yeah,
that is so fucked up.
Then you got all the Guardians crew too. So
not Avengers; they're doing space things. I mean,
Spider-Man he became an Avenger kind of during.
He was
but then everybody forgot who he was, and the only person that ever knew he was an Avenger was Tony Stark, because it's not like he ever had a chance to file the paperwork.
Right.
And Hulk's obviously,
Hulk's impregnating people. Yeah.
Where is Banner at this point? Yeah, like
he had a kid in She-Hulk. They showed that he was off planet, and he has a son with a really bad haircut.
Wait, wasn't there a post-credit scene in Shang-Chi where he meets up with Wong and Captain Marvel, and they're talking to him about being an Avenger?
Talking to who?
Shang-Chi.
Yes. You see Captain Marvel. I know Wong appears and then has them go with him, but I can't remember if there was.
I thought Captain Marvel was there as well. Like,
but she had
to holograms.
Yeah, she had to cut out, and then Banner's like, she does that a lot, kind of thing.
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Right. So there's clearly people who are like trying to start the Avengers, and it almost seems like there might be three. Like you have like the Banner, Captain Marvel contingent, the official one with Captain America.
But isn't the official one? Because this Avengers the new Avengers are government sanctioned now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I mean. Like when I say official, I mean like the government sanctioned.
But is Anthony Mackie as Captain America the government sanctioned one, or is Valentina's the government sanctioned one? Because they're the ones sitting in Stark Tower with the sparkly new uniforms and probably a dusted off Quinjet somewhere.
They are the government authorized ones, and this was another surprise, because in this sense the movie borrows more from the Dark Avengers comics than it does the Thunderbolts comics, which is very cool. Makes more sense in the MCU, but also surprised me.
Does anybody else find it weird that the Thunderbolts that are actually named after Thaddeus Thunderbolts, Ross, he wasn't in this movie?
Right.
because he's
I like that they named it
he-
after her hometown's, like, Bumblebee soccer team.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love that.
that was fun, but I mean, talk about a major departure from comics canon.
Well, that and also Baron Zemo was supposed to lead the Thunderbolts, and they have a great actor playing him, but he is in the raft.
He's nowhere to be found for movies
He's
now.
in the raft right next to.
He's next to Thunderbolt Ross. Yeah. And there's one other guy in there. I can't remember who for some reason.
They're all
Puff Diddy
toilet wine together.
No. Doesn't his trial start next week? That's going to be
Started today, didn't it?
Did it start today?
Yesterday they started with selecting the jurors.
Whose trial?
P.
Puff
Diddy.
Daddy.
Oh,
P.
yeah,
Diddy.
sorry.
Are you familiar with lubricant? How many gallons of lubricant?
Or the
is too
shortage of
much?
lubricant that he's created.
Man.
That's a superpower.
Okay, so one of the complaints about this and Brave New World from some fans, not all, is that the fans that want the kicky, punchy, laser beam, super strength, the last two Marvel movies were essentially the big bad is defeated by talking. Brave New World, they play into Sam's role as a therapist, and this they end in a group hug, like we're supporting each other, kumbaya.
Right, we'll pretend you didn't just do all the things you just did right now.
But do you have an issue with these problems being solved by talking rather than punching, Marcus?
No, I don't, because at the end of the day, talking is what these characters do throughout the movie, and they start off bickering, and then they slowly talk, and become a team. And their bond is not who kicks the most ass. Their bond is we're all fucked up, and it's this dependent group. It's therapy. They are group therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not selling Hulk hands based on the Thunderbolts.
But I think that's the best thing about Thunderbolts. I have so many problems with Captain America and Brave New World that I've watched it once. And I couldn't even remember how he talked Red Hulk down. But I just thought that I mean, you warned me about that movie. You texted me before I saw it. And then I watched it on video on demand. And I was actually reading a book at the same time. And I just thought, it's the first Marvel movie, one, I haven't seen in the cinema outside of pandemic, and two, I just barely paid attention to because there was nothing in it. I could have done without that movie.
It's strange. Harrison Ford doesn't do it for me anymore as an actor. Aside of in Shrinking on Apple TV.
Ooh,
yeah,
quite.
But like everything else that he's been in of recent note, like to me, has just like he's past his prime to me.
Yeah, I think look, we all know the last two Indiana Jones movies sucked. I mean, the fact that he died in Force Awakens worked, and I think because we had that little bit of Han Solo, and then he was gone, and that was the most the most graceful exit. I mean, the way he's going, I'm waiting for a sequel to Witness.
Oh man, deep cut there.
Air Force 2, get off my other plane.
I'm just gonna kick your ass.
Yeah, anyways.
And Paul, were you disappointed, or do you agree with Marcus that this movie needed to get resolved the way it got resolved? Which I agree with Marcus, by the way.
Well, okay. First of all, I didn't notice it until you said something.
Oh,
that it was
wow.
that they did it in both movies, and that the two movies were back to back. I could see an argument being made for not doing it two movies in a row, but I think it worked
That's
in
fair.
both movies because of the characters. Right? It made sense that Anthony Mackie's character would do that, given what his day job was or is. I'm not even sure if he still works there, and it made sense as you pointed out, the group therapy dynamic of this movie. That said, having the two movies back to back, I mean, I don't know how you avoid that because there's other things that go on that are contingent on each other. So,
well, originally this was supposed to be released after Fantastic Four, but then they had the Kang issues and there's switcheroos and strikes.
Right.
So
maybe, like I think if Deadpool and Wolverine had come in between them, we wouldn't be having this conversation because nobody would be sort of noticing.
You want Deadpool and Wolverine to come in between who?
Between if it had come after Captain America and before Thunderbolts.
Oh man, I just
or,
thought of
or some other movie where like it's all fighty shooty stuff.
But I mean, and then look at the villains of the piece here, and neither of them could be beaten with brute force.
Right.
It was only a matter of time before Hulk rips
You're
Sam
going to need
Wilson
something
to
more.
pieces.
You're going to need wits.
He may only, he may only have 1,000 sons, but he was still, he could just go like that and everybody gone. So it does make sense for them to have done it. Having these two movies come out after each other, and I know Brave New World was really hampered by a lot of reshoots. This one had a couple of script rewrites. I think you said there were at least two. I could have done without Brave New World. I really could have, because I don't think
that's your soundbite review of the Thunderbolts. I could have done without Brave New World.
Well, my point being is, I think Anthony Mackie and Sam Wilson deserve a better movie. This one tried to be Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where you have that sort of like the intrigue and the power struggle and the Cold War aspecty type thing, and it just fell so flat. It was badly written, shitty CGI, flat characters,
unnecessary Hulk stuff, adamantium, which they had to do. I get it, but it didn't really add anything to that. That could have been any metal or substance they were talking about. Unobtainium, yes. So, Mac, let me ask you this. Some people make the point that defeating the Void was something this new Avengers team could do, but the OG team couldn't have done that because they weren't as damaged and they didn't have the group empathy, as Marcus said. Do you agree with that assessment?
Do I think the original Avengers could defeat the Void?
Yes, who was essentially had to be.
Well, I think the answer goes back to what Marcus said. You can't physically like the original Avengers team is a ground and pound, beat you by physical, overpowering group, and that's not what needed to happen with the Void.
Right, exactly.
Like Hulk, even with Hulk, strong as he is, even with Hulk and Thor, right? It just would have been a whole bunch more of that scene where in the original where Thor, Iron Man, and whoever are fighting in the middle of the forest and just destroying everything within fucking sight, right? Yeah. It would be an invincible city destroying, Superman level city destroying scene for every single punch that's thrown,
Right. No, that is fair.
I guess if I look at it through that lens, then no, I don't think A team Avengers would do better than B team Avengers.
Fair.
I think Black Widow and Bruce Banner could probably have done a good job talking to Bob and talking.
Oh yeah, maybe
based on what they've been through,
and Anthony Mackie.
Well,
he's not in the OG team though.
Oh
well,
yeah.
The reason I'm saying Banner is that he knows what it's like to be out of control, and your power relies on being angry and punching the shit, and Sentry's power, the Void's power, is relying on being depressed and depressing everybody. So I think there could have been something there.
Yeah,
that is a fair point. So let's briefly talk about the director, Jake Schreier. We mentioned that he worked on Beef. He's done a lot of these artist videos with people that Benny Blanco has worked with. I know him first from Paper Towns, which I don't think is a very good movie, but I like it because Cara Delevingne is hot and rich. So that was my first experience with him. A lot of people are clamoring like this guy needs to direct more MCU movies. I'm like, hey, let's slow down. He did good with one. I'm not so sure about this. Paul, what do you think? Do you want to see more Jake Schreier MCU movies?
I think it would really depend on the movie. Like, I don't want to see him do an Avengers movie, but on the level of like an Endgame or Doomsday or anything. You know what I mean? That kind of Avengers movie. I also don't want him to do Blade. But I don't think
anyone's going to do Blade.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's going to go. Well, there's only one Blade, so I think he could do another one, but it would have to be something small, like another Thunderbolts or like a Dark Avengers or He could do a Moon Knight movie, although I don't necessarily think we need a Moon Knight movie. I think he could do, or Ghost, maybe. I don't know about Ghost Rider.
But
yeah, I mean,
I see what you're saying about
depends on what it is.
The scope has to be smaller for him to do well. Is what you're saying?
Yes, I think it can't be as big as Endgame or anything like that. It has to be a smaller movie.
Yeah.
Like an Ant-Man.
Not that small.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I don't know exactly who. So
I get your point. Marcus, did you have any opinions on the job Jake Schreier did with this movie?
I thought he did a good enough job to warrant to crack something else. I'd like to see him maybe tackle a 4-episode miniseries.
That would be great too.
Which could be very interesting, especially if you're dealing with, again, this more indie perspective, maybe amping, moving more towards the horror aspect. Something like, Werewolf by Night comes to mind.
Oh,
that was really enjoyable to me. Not necessarily that, but something along
in that vein,
dealing
something,
with
out there, different, small enough.
He could perhaps really do a good Scarlet Witch series.
Oh,
really, almost like Who Shot Scarlet Witch, that book, and just make it a lot more smaller, a lot more intimate. Because I the Multiverse of Madness was pretty okay at the end of the day, but yeah, and WandaVision was what it was, very enjoyable in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, something a little more horrific, a little more psychological, not Sam Raimi level horrific, but
right, but more of the mental aspect. Yeah, I like what he does, and I think we all know him best from Beef. So
I didn't watch Beef. I think I got 10 minutes in.
You should get your teeth into Beef.
I had beef with Beef.
I thought it was excellent. I don't know how you guys. I know Marcus liked it. Paul?
I haven't seen it. That's the Ali Wong thing.
And Stephen Yun.
I want Ali Wong to
That's
be
like on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's on my to be watched on Netflix when I re-sign up for Netflix next time.
Isn't Ali Wong dating Bill Hader now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That seems so weird to me, but hey.
Good for him.
Yes.
But wouldn't she be great in the MCU?
Who would you want her to play? She would be great in. I mean, I think she's super talented also, but wow, who could she play?
Obadiah. No, I'm just kidding.
She could actually. They could actually gender swap Amadeus Cho. Make him or her a little bit.
See, older. I wouldn't want her to be a superhero. I would want her to be like a normal human being.
Yeah, I almost see her in like a Valentina kind of role.
Yeah. Or like, do you remember the woman who ran the convenience store in the Venom movies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
I could see her being that, like a sort of like a recurring character that's like ends up being really funny as they go along.
Movie and thought it was hilarious.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
They're all good but not good at the same time.
And they get worse as you go on.
But Tom Hardy and the Venom dynamic just works.
I mean, he's super talented. I think he made the most out of a shit script.
Yeah.
Three times he pulled that off. But
so let us Mobland, by the way. Watch Mobland.
Okay.
On Paramount Plus.
Let us close things out on the post-credit scene. I mean, the mid-credit scene is funny and straightforward. The post-credit scene was kind of spoiled for me because I noticed the Fantastic Four theme was listed in the credits, and I definitely did not hear it in the movie. So I'm like, oh, the post-credit scene is going to be Fantastic Four related. So way to spoil it for me, credits. No way around it. Paul, actually, the post-credit scene was actually produced by the Russos, and they were filming it on the Avengers movie set. So that is an interesting tidbit there. Paul, what did you make of the post-credit scene?
I like their interaction, especially when they were talking about like the whole thing about getting sued by the other Avengers and whatnot.
That was comedy.
And then when they said like, oh, there's like a spaceship, I was like, what? It didn't like, because the thing is, I noticed the thing you noticed about the Fantastic Four theme but I just figured like I missed it or something because like I'm like, oh, I don't know what that theme is because the movie hasn't come out yet. So I was like, what the hell spaceship is this? Like, who's coming? I'm like,
You didn't watch the trailer 50 times like I did?
Yeah.
No, and I was like, what is going on? And then when the spaceship like shows up, I was like, oh, and then like it turns and it's got that's when I got my nerd boner.
Marcus, when we chatted, you had some issues with the post-credit scene, but what did you think overall now that you've had time to?
I liked a lot of the post-credit scene. I felt that it didn't need to have the Fantastic Four in there because we haven't seen that movie yet. I mean, maybe this is a leftover from them switching Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts around, and this was always planned to be that way. But I don't see the point in, before we get to the Fantastic Four, already just throwing out there that, they're going to appear in this Earth and then we'll go to Doomsday. I think it felt a little bit like that post-credit scene that we saw that that scene from Civil War, where it was Bucky with his arm in a vice, and it was Sam and it was Cap, and they pulled that scene. I can't remember what it was the post-credits on. But I don't think it needed to be done. I think they could have said, there's a ship coming in, and just left it at that. We didn't have to see, Fantastic Four's coming out in 2 months. Hit me, watch it. we all gonna go watch it anyway. But I like the rest of it. I like the whole, Sam starting his own thing.
Right.
Is he gonna sue us? What the hell?
Alexei's outfits.
Yeah, well, you get to Avengers with a Z, which was
Avengers.
But I thought that actually the outfits that they had, the new battle outfits, they reflected like, we got some extra budget. I thought they were great. I thought Bob, 14 months later, still hasn't got a handle on his powers. That's freaking scary. I thought it was a really good one. It could have just done without that little sliver. Again, a little bit of a a tease is better than showing all of the ankle. If you get my drift.
The clip that they showed seemed like it was a clip that we just saw in the trailer because it's like a certain angle of the ship, and the ship looks like a
right. I think you're right.
Like,
but
if they weren't really heavy into the throes of marketing Fantastic Four now, then I would totally agree with you, right? Like, what I feel like, because they like, everybody here is waiting for like this next wave of Marvel movies and like how they're going to tie in together. And it's, for me, the feeling that I got, again, knowing enough about the Fantastic Four and knowing enough about what's to come, like this end movie stinger scene for me was like, hey, like this feels like in the first, Marvel movies where you would be waiting to see Samuel L. Jackson at the end.
Right. When they talk about Thor's hammer
and give you that thing to be excited about. And I felt like, man, this did exactly that for me. Like, I know I don't know everything about all the universe and stuff like that, but it was nice for me to just have the hook, like, okay, this is going to tie into Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is going to tie into Doom.
Doomsday,
whenever that comes out. And like, so I'm more interested now, and to me, as a not quite as versed fan, like, this is giving me that next nugget or two to look forward to, right? So that's what I'm kind of excited about it.
I get your point. If Fantastic Four, if they hadn't come out and already said Fantastic Four is a different universe, it's it's an America that's, or a world that's sort of like stopped after the 60s, everything's stylized that way. And if it wasn't that fact, I'd be totally down with it. It just feels like, we're about to feed you your main course, but here's a little taste of dessert. I'm like, why? Right. It just felt like, and this is worrying me with regards to the Russos. I'm wondering, especially after watching everything they've done post Endgame, was Endgame and Infinity War their peak? Because they had 4 bangers in a row with the 2 Cap movies and then the 2 Avengers movies.
Yeah.
You look at what they've done since, and it stinks.
I think they peaked at Community, personally.
But no, I mean, their stuff's. But I mean, if this is heavy-handed, if we're looking at Doomsday, it's going to be heavy-handed, or if we're looking at the post-credits for Fantastic Four that they will probably film, or they probably already shot, because we know Doomsday is filming. Right. You know, the casting of Robert Downey Jr. There's a lot of flags there, and then
I don't really. I'm still on the camp of like I just. It's gonna be hard to digest Robert Downey Jr. as anybody other than Iron Man when you see a Marvel movie, and like I don't know if that's a pill I'm gonna be able to swallow.
Question for you, Marcus: would you rather have a post-credit scene that is, I totally understand your point, that's maybe a little ham-fisted, or would you rather see a post-credit scene that actually goes nowhere, like Star Fox or Clea at the end of Doctor Strange? Well, if those were the only two choices.
You had two really shit choices.
I'm more of, if you know, it's the same view I look with regards to trailers. I don't need to see the whole fucking film in a trailer. Give me one trailer, give me a teaser, give me one trailer, and then I'm done. I do not need to see any more. I don't need to see 15 different ones where it's like, oh, we're going to give you the premise, and then here's the twist, and this is the ending. But all the last 5 seconds, we're not going to show you. Or
basically Brave New Worlds trailers, which gave away like cool
here's the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, less is more. Keep the anticipation is the key. And I think it just goes to show how movie marketing in particular, they think so little of the audience, that the audience has to be spoon-fed an entire fucking movie to go see a movie.
Right. Except that one of the things that's come up, because people for decades have been complaining that trailers give away too much. And every time they ever do a poll, people say that they want to know what's going to happen in movies. They don't want to be surprised.
That's my daughter, man. Like my wife, my daughter, like will absolutely want to know the whole story before they sit down and watch the movie.
I'm a trailer nerd. I can't get enough of them, and I will watch them 50 times and go through stupid frames.
Mm-hmm. I like a good trailer, but I don't need to have it. I don't need to have it.
I'd like to be pleasantly surprised as I watch the movie.
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm happy to put my money down, turn up and go, oh, this is all the good stuff was in the trailer, and they screwed me.
Really, really stupid aside that I actually meant to mention like 45 minutes ago, but when they were showing Bob's files, someone posted a screen of it, and it said that he got into an accident in middle school and got addicted to morphine. I'm like, wow, that got dark really fast. So that was the beginning of his drug addiction.
Bob IRL.
Yeah. So, but I love those kind of details. But guys, we have gone more than 90 minutes for your viewing and listening pleasure. I want to thank my guests for this super fun chat. Or at least it was super fun for me. Paul and Mac will be coming back to discuss some Star Wars nerd stuff. Thursday, we're going to be talking about the animated Star Wars tapas, Tales of the Underworld, of which I liked half.
Yeah, same.
Like Mac. We're going to be talking about Andor next week. At the end of the month, we're going to recast Revenge of the Sith. And somewhere in between there, we're going to talk about Apple TV Plus's The Studio. So I hope you guys come back for all of that.
I will be.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. You're always, I send out the email. You're invited to all of it.
Fantastic Four. I love you guys.
Yes. But thanks for watching RPad TV. We will see you next time. Be good.
All right, everybody.